So for more, we're joined by the MEC for Human Settlements and Public Works in KwaZulu-Natal, Mr. Jomo Sibiya. Mr. Sibiya, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you very much, Sakina. Good morning to you and the listeners of Morning Live.
Mr. Sibiya, more than 14,000 homes affected, either partially or completely damaged. So which areas were worst affected?
That is true indeed, Sakina. It's a devastating act of nature that has seen us suffering so much in the province. But the epicenter, as we have said earlier on, the areas that have suffered in the most are the areas of eThekwini metro, but in particular, the northern part of eThekwini and the western part of eThekwini, and partly in the south. But almost the entire eThekwini metro has suffered a devastating blow, where you'll see that at the end of the day, we need to change how we do things, where our people get to build their houses, because a number of those who suffered are the ones who were building their houses along the water streams, in the flood lanes, in the steep hills. So we need to try and change how things have been done to avoid such catastrophic acts to happen. But we are moving very fast and with speed in trying to intervene as the government of KwaZulu-Natal, the Department of Human Settlements.
So just in terms of that assistance that you speak about, before we get to the details of it, you speak about people building on floodplains as an example. So who will be receiving assistance with rebuilding, and how many homes, if you've been able to establish at this point, will actually require relocation?
Sakina, out of about 4,300 totally destroyed houses, 3,600 of those houses are coming from eThekwini. And mainly the people who have suffered the most, 90% of those houses are coming from the townships and the rural area, the rural part of eThekwini and the informal settlements. So you can see that the devastation is mainly in the areas where poor people are mainly located. So what we are going to be doing is that we are going to be prioritizing first those who don't have houses altogether, who are living in halls, who are living in schools, who are living in churches currently, the ones that we have are with their neighbors and their relatives, because we need to make sure that those who are in halls and in churches and other areas, they do bring back their lives together and start to move on with life. It's very, very important. But number two, the issue of relocation is very important. Today at 1 o'clock, we'll be having the meeting with the Minister of Public Works nationally, Minister Delil, and Minister Kubai, Minister of Human Settlement national, where we'll be dealing with the issue of land pockets that have been identified, because we need more land to relocate our people, to have suitable land to build their houses and for government to build them. Currently, we'll be starting with temporal structures that we call temporal residential units. They are decent units, Sakina. I know our people have an anxiety when we talk about the temporal residential units. They think of what happened before, during COVID. It's not that. We've got a system that we are using in KZN, and we'll be continuing with that system. It's quicker because our people need houses today, not tomorrow. They don't have a house today, not tomorrow. So we'll be starting building. We'll be on the ground as from this weekend, starting in eThekwini. And we'll be starting in eThekwini because that's the epicenter. And we'll be moving to other districts like Ugu, Ilembe, Umhlathuze, and Mpungundlo. Those are other affected regions. And then we'll go further to others as the weekend continues. But we want to make sure that when we start, Sakina, we don't just start in one part. We have managed to pull together all our resources. We have brought down our engineers from national level, from the entities of human settlements like NHDRC, HDA, and others. We have managed to work with Public Works national and provincial to help us with their engineers and everyone who has a technical skill in making sure that when we do assessment, when we identify land, it will be suitable for us to build in it. And we are making sure that at the speed, because one of the most important things is the speed and the responsive turnaround time that we'll be using to do this. That's why we are saying to you, by this weekend, we are starting to be on the ground to build for these people and make sure that we continue again to provide those who need material, because there are those, Sakina, who have their rooftops blown away by the storm and by the winds. Those, they need material, and we'll be supplying them with material using a voucher system that we have developed in the province, that we've been using over some time, even in the earlier disaster that we had in December and January. we're using the very same system. But also you've got some in the areas where informal settlements, people, they just say we just need material to bring back our lives together. And we'll be providing those with the material. We do have a system that we use. So our action is in play. Our act is, in fact, our plan is at play currently. We have put together everything and we are ready to move as of this weekend. We are just tying up the loose ends to make sure that there is nothing that will go wrong.
So just in terms of assessment, as you say that in some instances people simply require material to rebuild, but what if they are rebuilding in an area where the earth may be unstable still? Is there any sort of assessment that will be done in terms of the pockets of land identified? And, how are you going to go about that? Because in terms of relocation, how do you decide who needs to be relocated?
Sakina, if we don't learn now to do things correctly, we'll never learn. And we have appointed social facilitators who are going already are out there to talk to our communities, to facilitate all this work, to make sure that whatever that is being identified as unsuitable, we do talk to our people, we do make them understand that this is how things are going to be done, this is what is going to happen, this is what we want to do with you, let's work together. And we are not going to be building in floodlanes, Sakina. We are not going to be building along the streams. The Prima has instructed us very well. Even ourselves, our conscience tells us very clear that we can't continue doing things in a manner that have been done. We just need to change and do things better to avoid such catastrophic measures. So we are not going to allow a situation where people continue to be in the streams and along the riverbanks. In fact, even themselves, when we talk to them, they say, yes, let me see, we can see that really. We shouldn't have built here, but it happened, and we are not going to be pointing fingers. What is needed right now is government interventions and changing the lives of our people and bring normalcy in their lives.
MEC Sibiya, I appreciate that you are alive to the fact that there is a huge trust deficit between government and the people. And when you speak about the temporary homes, the temporary structures that will be put up for families, let me ask you this, because it's difficult to think right off the top of my head of a yardstick. But would you live in those temporary structures that you are going to be putting up?
That's my mantra, Sakina. I always say, whatever that we give our people, it should be something that myself, I can stay in it, I can live in it. Definitely, Sakina, it's temporal structures. They are not necessarily like some people might think it's in Jondolo kind of, but it's a decent temporal structure. When you are a bit further from it, you'll think it's a normal RDP house. We are wiring it, putting electricity in it and everything. It can even last for the next 10 years, but we're not saying they'll be staying there for 10 years. But it's a decent temporal structure. And after that, we'll be starting the process of rebuilding their houses, building them normal BNTs, RDP houses, because this is just a temporal measure that is needed now. Otherwise, we'd be waiting to start the planning processes and everything, which will take a bit of time, and build normal houses. But obviously, it will take a bit of time if we talk about 4,500 households. Houses that needs to be built. So we are making sure that whatever that we give our people, it's exactly what you're saying. It's something that when I ask myself as an executive authority in the department, is this something that I can use if it's given to me? And definitely, Sakina, under the conditions that we're faced with, we're giving them something that we believe, something that will give them the decency that they deserve. And it's what we believe as government we must do for our people that we care for.
And I guess this is the difficult balancing act, because if it is going to be that decent a structure that will have all the amenities that you mentioned, why then not look to have people settle permanently and, instead of using that money and then having to find more money to build permanent settlement structures, how is that going to work, and how much will your department need for, let's start with these 4,000 homes that have been destroyed that you need to rebuild?
Sakina, that's a very good question. But living in South Africa, and you in particular, you will know very well. The questions you'll be asked in South Africa, which I think they are valid as well, and they are justifiable. If we start building the permanent houses, it takes a bit of time, Sakina. A brick and mortar house, the planning processes that are involved in it and everything, it takes a bit of time. But as I've said earlier on, you've got people who don't have houses today. And the question they are asking, where is our government? When is our government starting to intervene? We just need to have a place to stay right now, not tomorrow. And if you don't do that, again, you will be said we're an uncaring government. And the third part, I'll have to say this, it will just be pointed at the president and the ruling party as the party that doesn't care. And Sakina, we want to read that such ideas from our people and make sure that we do things right. It's true that financially it will be a bit costly, but it's an intervention that is needed. It's an intervention that will help our people right now. Because it's unlike me and you. When we go home and sleep peacefully. And the majority of the people who can ask those questions, the very same people who go home and sleep peacefully, have roof on top of their heads. But the people who are suffering currently, they just want to know, when are we coming to help them? When are they going to have some roof on top of their heads? And it has to be now, not tomorrow.
Fair point. Hence, I say it's a difficult juggling act. But what mechanism, and I think this is the crux of the matter as a final question, MEC, the mechanisms in place, the political parties have also been asking, how are you going to ensure that the money actually goes to where it should? Why should South Africans believe that the billions of rands in relief funds will not be looted by corrupt officials and those that they work with?
Sakina, I saw a cartoon where we're painted as hyenas that are waiting to chow this money. And let me assure South Africans, we're a different breed, and we have leaders who have directed us very well to make sure that the image that has been painted, but also maybe some acts that have happened before, they don't continue. We want to discontinue this anxiety our people are having, that as the state, as the government of the day, were unable to handle their monies, were unable to handle state funds. We are going to make sure that there is no mismanagement. The AG is part of everything that we are doing in procurement. The Treasury is part of everything. That's the mechanisms are there already. But ourselves as executing authorities, we have a responsibility that to play our oversight role and make sure that whatever that is happening in our departments, it's happening in a manner that is followed as per the prescripts of good governance. And we are very, very determined, Sakina, to make sure that this anxiety, it doesn't continue. And we're pleading with our people, and we're saying to them, look at this, watch us doing this work. It's our people's money, and all we want to do is to make sure that there are no opportunists who see this as this disaster as an opportunity to make money and to steal from government. We can't be the government of thieves, the government of hyenas. We are not going to continue with that. The Premier has told us very straight, the President has told us very straight, but our people on the ground, everyone, even yourselves as the media, Sakina, we are talking about it. I think we can't be leaders who ignore such, and we are very determined to make sure that we contain anything. There shouldn't be any leakage of any state funds. All the funds must be accounted for, and we'll make sure that that happens.
We'll be watching like hawks, Mr. Sibiya. Thanks so much for your time this morning. KZN MEC of Human Settlements and Public Works, Jomo Sibiya.